At my grandson's graduation, I took the podium and announced a $250,000 scholarship in someone else's name. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Gasps rippled across the bleachers. My daughter-in-law's smile went stiff as lacquer. 10 minutes earlier, she leaned over my folding chair and called me a relic, a purse with hands. I decided to clarify exactly who funds this family's future, and who almost ended mine. The band kept playing. Tassels swayed. I waited for the vice principal to hand me the envelope. Inside was proof. Names, dates, wire, stamps, and the person whose name I spoke into the microphone. That's where everything truly started to break. I'm 68, a bookkeeper by habit and a widow by surprise. My hands know where every penny in a ledger is supposed to sit, and I still balance my checkbook with a pen that clicks too loudly for modern patience. The night before the graduation, I set the pen beside a china teacup with a hairline crack and a sprig of lemon verbena from my porch. I ironed my navy dress, stitched a loose hem, and laid out my locket than gold. Photos inside. My son at 7, missing a front tooth. My grandson, Miles, red-cheeked and furious about his first tie. Miles is ready for the world, I told the house. It was something my late husband used to say to me when I fixed a leaky faucet or outnegotiated an insurance adjuster. Now it sounded like a prayer. At 7:18 p.m., the doorbell chimed. I didn't need to check the peephole. My daughter-in-law always presses the bell like she's tapping a chess clock, one sharp move after another. She swept in without waiting, floral perfume first, then the aggressive clack of heels. "Evelyn," she sang, "you look traditional, classic," I said. I placed the teacup on a coaster and watched the crack catch the light. "Lydia, you're early, always," she said, eyes scanning my mantle like it owed her a secret. Frames, kindergarten crayon art, a father-son fishing photo with a bent-net smile. The last family Christmas. She paused at one frame. My son had insisted on keeping the two of us with our green wall phone in the background, its coiled cord like a question mark. Lydia tapped the glass with a manicured nail. "We should upgrade these digital frames, a subscription that refreshes every week. I like to dust," I said. She ignored the jab. "Miles needs you to be gracious tomorrow. It's his day." Her voice softened, then sharpened. "Please don't do your thing, my thing. Lectures, lists, correcting dates. You know," she smiled. "Relic stuff." I tasted lemon and something metallic. "He asked me to bring a pen," I said. "For the program." "Yes," she said. "And you can do that. And clap. And be small." She pulled an envelope from her tote and slid it onto my console table. "Also, sign this." "Also." I picked it up. The paper was thick, expensive. "You don't say hello, you don't sit, you just, it's routine," she said. "In case of emergency at the ceremony, the school requires a designated guardian if the primary parent is incapacitated." "The school," I said, "requires a power of attorney, just a healthcare proxy form, and a short-term financial authorization in case of like tickets or fees." She winked. "You know how schools love fees." I didn't move. "Where did you get these?" "My friend's uncle is an attorney." She adjusted a bracelet until it shone like a threat. "You remember Antonio? He spoke at our wedding. Or were you in the foyer then?" I'd been in the foyer hunting for the ring-bearer's pillow and overheard a slice of Italian that wasn't about love. She sighed. "Evelyn, don't be difficult. It's standard. We all sign stuff. You still mail checks." "I do," I smiled. "It builds character on both sides of the transaction." She rolled her eyes. "Miles is valedictorian. He's my son. I decide what keeps him safe. He's also my son's son," I said. "Careful." My mouth pressed against the crack in the cup. "And safe is not a form." Her phone chimed. She glanced. Thumb flew. Attention snapped back with a thermostat click. "Tomorrow, wear the navy flats. Bring your reading glasses on a chain so you don't lose them. And please, don't start counting the tassels. I only count things that move when pressure's applied," I said. "Cute." She leaned, brushed my cheek, a kiss that was air and contempt. 7:30, main gate. Her heels ticked away. The door closed on lemon, lacquer, and the faint, expensive musk of something that wasn't hers. I washed the cup, turning it under the faucet so the crack looked like a river map. I'd glued it once after Miles knocked it over, building a fort between dining chairs. He'd cried hot and fast. I told him some cracks don't mean broken, and some cups shouldn't be used for boiling tea. In my office, the overhead pulled a hard circle of light onto my desk. I opened the envelope. The healthcare proxy was a generic form downloaded from a site that sells wills by the yard. The financial authorization was not short-term. It was a durable financial power of attorney, pre-checked boxers that would hand over control of my accounts to Lydia in the event of temporary incapacity, travel, or administrative burdens. Witness lines blank. Notary seal, not yet pressed. A sticky note on top. Signed tonight, I'll handle the rest. I placed the papers on my blotter, right beside a spiral notebook where I list what doesn't add up. I wrote 3 bullets. School requires POS. Verify. Why temporary incapacity language from me on his day. Antonio, immigration lawyer. Wedding speech, parachuted parents. I keep a second notebook for what's true but unprovable for now. It's smaller, with a green elastic band and a little sticker miles slapped on, a cartoon octopus with a calculator. I flipped through old lists. Patient handwriting marked the months after my son died. Accounts to close. Insurance to verify. Leases to terminate. One stubborn gym membership that outlived decency. Lydia had been efficient, and efficiency can smell like care if you're grieving hard enough to lose. Nouns. She handled the obituary and misprinted his middle name. She handled the memorial catering and forgot his favorite pie, which is not a crime but still is. She also handled the proof of family for her new application spousal status to permanent resident. She'd shown me photos of her parents arriving for the ceremony, faces sympathetic and faintly theatrical. I took one look at the father's shoes, rain-splotched suede in a dry month, and the mother's hands, too uncalloused for a florist, which she'd said she was, and wrote parachuted on a post-it I could pretend was about weather. At 9:42, my landline rang. The green wall phone reincarnated in a modern handset. Only a handful of people use it. I answered with my name, the way my father taught me. Nona, Miles said, breathless, voice shaking like it might jump from boy to man and back again. Can you bring the fountain pen? Of course. And bring that black folder you keep your boring stuff in. His voice softened. I'm writing a thank you for the scholarship committee. Miss Keene says a handwritten note shows character. Miss Keene is right. I pressed the receiver to my cheek. Miles, who told you there's a scholarship committee? There's always a scholarship committee. A pause. Right? Right? I smiled. Sleep, be 10% brave and 90% kind. In that order. He exhaled the kind of laugh that fixes a day you haven't met yet. Night, Nona. I carried the phone back to its cradle and, before it clicked, heard a breath on the line. Not Miles, the faint static of someone listening, or the cheap splice on a shared drop. I waited. It went dead. I noted the time. On my desk, I placed 2 folders, black for the boring stuff, red for the fire. Into red went the POA forms, my green-banded notebook, a copy of my living trust, revocable, with a reversion clause my lawyer had joked was too paranoid until he conceded it wasn't, and the tiny magnifier I used to examine signatures. Into black went plain paper, a stamped envelope, and the fountain pen Miles likes, because it squeaks when you press too hard. In the bedroom, I chose the navy dress and set flats beside it. I added low heels, just in case the gym floor felt like concession. In the mirror, my locket lay against my collarbone like a punctuation mark, period or colon, I couldn't tell yet. Morning pulled its warm light over the kitchen table. I buttered toast and left it untouched. At 7:32, Lydia's text, main gate, don't be late. I replied with a thumbs up. Then put my phone in my purse behind a small cloth pouch inside it. My late husband's pocket watch. He took time seriously. I learned to school. The parking lot was a field of rental SUVs and proud shoulders. Banners fluttered. The band warmed up on a loop like a memory you're not done with. Lydia steered us to the front row as if assigned, and to be fair, she had the talent of people who stand exactly where cameras cannot avoid them. Smile, she hissed, as the principal passed. Not with teeth. Older women look desperate when they Lydia, I said. Please. She leaned down, breath sugar bright. Relic, remember. Purse with hands. I tucked the word somewhere useful. Did you bring the forms? Later, she said. Right now, we beam. I need to speak to Antonio anyway. Your friend's uncle, I said. Cousin, technically. She waved toward a man, in an immaculate navy suit with a tie knotted like geometry. He had a lawyer's face, expressive around the eyes, blank everywhere that mattered. He lifted 2 fingers at Lydia, then checked his watch. The motion stirred something in my memory, a watch like that. A bank desk. The smell of lemon cleaner. Not yet, I thought. Not yet. The band struck up, and Miles walked in. He wore pride like it fit. He searched, found me, and tapped his chest twice. That's our sign for we've got this. He used to tap my locket when we crossed streets. During the speeches, I counted banners I didn't have to count. I counted the seconds between Lydia's glances at me and her phone. I counted the times the vice principal, Ms. Keene, folded and unfolded a cream envelope with a gold crest. When she finally approached the podium, she smiled the way teachers do when the next part is the fun part. "We are honored," she said, "to announce a new scholarship, funded by a private donor in our communities, someone who believes in second chances, hard work, and receipts." She glanced down at the envelope, then up at me. "Would our donor like to say a few words?" Lydia's hand clamped my wrist. "What are you doing?" "Counting," I said. 3, Evelyn. 2. She squeezed harder. "Do not embarrass me." 1, I said, and stood. I walked to the steps, feeling each ridge in the wood with my soles, cataloging the texture like I might need to prove it later. At the podium, Miss Keene slipped me the envelope. The seal was unbroken, but the flap was warm, as if someone had held it too long. My name was handwritten on the front in a tidy, careful script that made me think of ledgers and practice. "Say the name," Lydia murmured from below the stage. Her smile was a knife turned under a napkin. "Say it right." I opened the envelope and skimmed the page. Names, dates, a wire timestamp, a signature that wanted to look like mine. I looked at my grandson, bright, brave, tapping his chest twice, and at the woman who married my son with a bouquet and a plan. The band quieted. Tassels stilled, and the auditorium air felt like a held note. "I do have a few words," I said. And then I said the name that broke the room in half. "I dedicate this award," I said into the microphone, "to Angela Ruiza Teller, who would not notarize a signature she knew wasn't mine." The room tilted. Lydia's smile cracked like sugar glass. Antonio's hand went to his tie knot and paused. "If you're wondering why," I continued, "it's because the best kind of help is quiet, documented, and dated." I held up the page from the envelope. On top, a photocopy of a notary journal entry. Below it, a bank camera still, and taped to the corner, a pink sticky note in neat cursive. "I'm not supposed to give this, but you deserve your own signature. Angela." A hush moved like weather. Ms. Keene steadied the mic. "I didn't need it. 3 weeks after my son's funeral," I said, "someone presented a trust amendment at North Harbor Credit Union. It added a co-trustee to my living trust and authorized immediate transfers to meet administrative burdens. The signature reads, Evelyn S. Hale. The notary stamp says it was witnessed at 2:37 p.m. on March 18th. I looked at Lydia. At 2:37 p.m. on March 18th, I was at the county clerk's office, filing for a death certificate correction. The clerk remembers because the system crashed and we all had lemon drops from a dish that tasted like furniture polish. "I have the ticket stub." Angela had the eye. "Sit down," Lydia hissed from the front row. "You're humiliating yourself." Angela wouldn't notarize a signature she hadn't watched me make, I said, louder. She refused. The paper went elsewhere. Antonio took 1/2 step toward the aisle, then froze as I slid the bottom half of the sheet across the podium, the still from the bank's interior camera. Time-stamped 2:39 p.m., showing Lydia at the desk, a man in navy at her shoulder, and a notary journal open to a brittle page like a sacrament. "Miles," I said, eyes softening as I found him, "you told me your teacher says handwritten notes show character. So does ink." A murmur rolled back. This was not a TV drama. This was a gym, with scuffed floors, folding chairs, and a grandmother who could still pull a ledger line straight. Lydia rose, palms up in a conciliatory theater gesture. "My mother always said Evelyn has a flair for storytelling." "I've met your mother once," I said, and when I shook her hand, she flinched at a florist's calluses she did not have, scattered laughs from corners where people had no business laughing. I didn't want a pylon. I wanted the truth to sit where everyone could see it. "Here's the thing about paper," I said, tapping the page. "It has a life, a chain. We call it chain of custody when evidence moves. Notaries call it a journal. I call it who touched it when. And when a page pretends it saw me at 2:37 p.m., on a day I was standing in line with a woman named Bernice, arguing about hyphens, it's not a page, it's a plan." Miss Keene put a hand on my elbow, not to stop me, but to steady the ante. 2 minutes, she whispered, "then we'll do caps in the air, okay?" 2 minutes, I agreed. "Plenty." I slid the top copy back into the envelope and pulled a second page. You'll ask, why announce a scholarship today? Because deadlines matter. Because this scholarship funds kids who keep receipts, even when everyone else asks for vibes. Because the original recipient isn't an honor student with a trust fund. She's the bank teller who did her job and then some. And because last week, someone tried to serve me a durable financial power of attorney disguised as a school form. A ripple. Someone's keys chinked against the bleacher bar. I read it, I said. I read every verb. A durable POA survives my fatigue, my grief, my flu. It lets an agent open and close accounts, move real property, alter beneficiary designations. It's not a hold my purse while I tie my shoe. It's my entire purse. With hands, eyes slid to Lydia. She was beautiful. She worked at being so, and work shows. Her mouth held a shape it didn't usually try on. Small. I didn't sign, I said. Instead, I made a copy. And I took it to the man who drafted my trust 15 years ago, who told me my reversion clause was paranoid until he stopped laughing. He went looking, and found nothing, Lydia said brightly. Because there's nothing. This is what you do, Evelyn. You spin webs from dust. Rosa Patel found something, I said. She found a co-trustee edition, filed the same week as the bank attempt filed with a notary stamp that expired 2 years ago. The stamp number belongs to a notary who retired to Tampa, where she makes seashell wreaths, and called me back in 6 minutes. A dad in a polo actually ohad. Miss Keene bristled. I raised a hand. Nope. The retired notary mailed Rosa a photocopy of her journal, her last official day, December 31st, 2 years prior. The entry from March 18th shows my name, my signature, and a witness named Alina Duarte, who does not exist in our registry, our phone book, or the family tree you printed for immigration. That's not slander. That's a search. I held the page to the light. The pen pressure doesn't match. The S in my middle initial loops like a treble clef. I printed like a $sign I forgot to finish. Antonio finally found his voice. This is wildly inappropriate. A graduation ceremony is a public moment, I said, for public facts. I nodded to the back, where a woman in a gray blazer stood with the poised curiosity of a person who had worn a badge earlier in life, then chose cardigans. Detective Hart, 2 rows from the top. She told me to pick a day the community will be looking. If the room had been holding its breath, it let it out in something close to a laugh. Not at Lydia, not at me, at the audacity of a gym becoming a courtroom with a brass band. I softened. I'm not here to ruin a celebration, I said. I'm here to free a boy from a story he didn't write. Miles' throat bobbed. He blinked hard. I put the papers back in the envelope and handed it to Ms. Keene. Angela Ruiz, I said, could have said nothing. Instead, she took a risk for the truth. So this scholarship bears her name. And because she would hate the spotlight, we'll move fast. I left the stage before applause could decide if it wanted to happen. Lydia caught my forearm at the bottom step. You petty. Save your adjectives, I said. You'll need them for your affidavit. She smiled, but it didn't stick. You're sick, she whispered. You really are. Careful, I said. If you start the competency dance, I already have the music. Her grip loosened. What does that mean? It means Rosa printed me the statute on competency evaluations and the scope limits of guardianship. It means a corrupt clinician can be any clinician who sees a ledger instead of a patient. It means I'm not riding an ambulance alone, ever again. For a second, summer gym air smelled like January oxygen tubing. The memory was not abstract. 4 months after my son died on the day we were supposed to pick up Miles from debate camp, I'd taken 2 sips of New Year's champagne from an etched flute and seen the room tilt like a set piece. The ER doctor said dehydration. The nurse said strange, EKG, like digitalis. I kept the flute, not because I knew, because I count things that move under pressure. I washed it, wrapped it, and put it in a shoebox with a label. For later, if necessary. It felt necessary now. Return to your seat, Antonio said gently, like coaxing a chandelier not to fall. I sat. I counted breaths, tassels, the seconds, until caps would rise. When they did, I stood with everyone else and threw my little paper program into the air, then caught it because I am not wasteful. Photos, hug lines, a buffet of sheet cake rectangles beside a punch bowl, sweating like guilt. Lydia all sunshine in a thunderhead. Miles, sacredly teenage, floating between pride and worry. He came to me last. Nona, he said. That was a lot. I know, I said. It was also the truth. He swallowed. Did I do something wrong? Never. I cupped his jaw with a thumb that still remembered his baby fever. Do you remember the day you knocked over my teacup and I said some cracks Dan tea mean broken? He nodded. Some cups weren't meant for boiling tea. I said, you're a cup that holds a sky. His eyes glistened the way my husband S had, when he was the only man who cried at movies and never apologized for it. I love you. I love you. I pressed my locket to his chest twice. Our sign reversed, and he laughed on a sob. We posed for a photo. In the corner of the frame, Antonio's navy suit hovered with professional gravity. Lydia's hand on Miles' shoulder looked light. It was not. After, I found Detective Hart near the exit, studying a trophy case with the polite distraction of someone who hates to hover. You made it, I said. I like gyms, she said. People forget how well sound carries. We stood side by side, both looking at a plaque for basketball state in 2004. You have the journal copy, I asked. In my bag, she said, along with the warrant draft for the notary who actually stamped the fake. His name is in 3 journals. His stamp is in 4. That's not how stamps work. What about Antonio? I asked, glancing at the navy suit, now conferring in a cluster near the punch. Immigration lawyer, she said. Technically, his case list includes 3 adjustments, flagged for staged affidavits letters from parents who share no DNA with their children and can answer questions about birthday cakes. One of those cases involves your daughter-in-law's file, a K-1 entry that turned into adjustment of status in under 60 days with photos of family at a backyard ceremony. The parents in those photos are in 2 other files, under different names. Parachuted parents, I said softly. Hart glanced at me. You speak Italian. Only nouns that stick, I said. She smiled. We'll need more than photos, she said. We'll need a timeline and a financial trail. I can get the first. Can you help with the second? My middle name is Statements, I said. I have a wire timestamp from Michelle LLC, called Elena Duarte Consulting that Docent T exists in the Secretary of State's registry. Hart blinked. How'd you get that, Angela? I said. Quiet help, dated Hart. S face did a thing. I trust in people who have seen too many versions of the same bad. Then, here's our complication, she said. The timing. People like Lydia don't wait. When a plan starts to wobble, expect pressure. Maybe medical, maybe competency. I'm hard to poison, I said. I eat boring food. It's not always dramatic, Hart said. Sometimes it's a clinician who signs a pre-filled form and a cousin who says, you left the stove on. Sometimes it's a notary who shows up at your kitchen table with a stamp and an apology. Then we'll need a counterplan, I said. Something legal, boring, and hard to stop. Hart's eye caught the locket at my throat. Keep that, she said, and don't drink anything you didn't open. Is that a rule? It is now. We shook hands. Her palm was dry. Certain, she left through a side door, moving with the unhurried purpose of someone who knows how long paper takes to bloom. At the punch table, Lydia chewed cake like it was good. Congratulations, Miles, she said brightly, smearing frosting off his lip with a napkin that felt rehearsed. We're so proud. Me too, he said. Then, lower, to me. Nona, who is Angela? A woman who believed me when I said ink matters, I said. You'll write her a thank you. Is she here? She's the kind of person who stands near doors, in case someone needs to leave without being seen. Oh, he said, pleased by the image, like a superhero. Exactly, I said. Only with sensible shoes. The line to the exit thinned. I fished the black folder from my bag and handed Miles a card. Write your note tonight, I said. Write to the person, not the idea. She'll keep it. He nodded, then hugged me so fast and fierce I smelled his shampoo and the salt of a day well spent. He drifted into his friends, a boy with a sky to hold. Lydia turned to me, her voice low and chilly. I don't know what stunt you think this is, but I know how to end it. Paper, I asked. Or pills. She blinked too slowly. What? You're a planner, I said. You build plans with staged social proof and professionals who don't ask hard questions. You map holidays and deadlines and health scares. You think I don't see the scaffolding because you hid it behind flowers. Her jaw tightened. You're paranoid. I am, I said. And I have a lawyer whose favorite hobby is reversion clauses. Her laugh was almost kind. Evelyn, you are a purse with hands. Nothing more. I smiled. Then you should have checked what I keep inside. She stepped close, breath warm with vanilla. Enjoy your little scene, she said. Tomorrow, we reset. Tomorrow, I said, we begin. Outside, sunlight laid a bright square on the hood of my car. In the trunk, the shoebox labeled for later waited like the last clean cup in a house full of guests. I drove home with the windows down, the pocket watch ticking in its pouch. At the first red light, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Lovely speech. Reminder, competency evil at 9 a.m. Monday. Dr. Wen's office. Lydia scheduled. AI smiled and took a photo of the screen. Then I tapped the little I, saved the number as Angela Ruiz, and replied with a single period. She'd understand. It's the neatest way to say received without starting a war. Back at my kitchen table, I pulled the red folder, the black folder, and the shoebox. I set them by the cracked teacup and the lemon verbena. I clicked my pen too loudly for modern patience, and I wrote one sentence at the top of a clean page. Chain of custody begins at home. The next morning, I parked 2 blocks from North Harbor Credit Union and walked the rest with a grocery tote, so I wouldn't look like a person arriving for a fight. The tote held the shoebox, wrapped in a faded scarf like a pie for a neighbor. Inside, the bank smelled like lemon cleaner and thermal paper. Angela stood at the far window, hair in a tight coil, a badge that said Senior Member Services, which is what you call a teller when she can do the manager's job and doesn't need the title. She glanced up, didn't smile, and tapped the little pause key on her station so the line would flip to the next window. You brought your homework, she murmured. I brought a thank you and a question. Good, she said. I have 2 answers and a favor. We stepped into a break room with a microwave that thought highly of itself. She poured coffee into paper cups that boasted a forest printed with a green promise to be recycled. I'm not supposed to, she said, and then, I know. I laid the shoebox on the table and opened it. The champagne flute sat in bubble wrap like a relic that was important because of the story and not the glass. New Year's, I said. 2 sips. Said dehydration. Nurse said, digitalis. I kept the flute. Chain of custody, stayed at home. Angela whistled under her breath. Keep the wrap. Don't touch it with lotion on your hands, she said. Not because of Prince, because oils eat everything. You were a lab tech in a previous life, I guessed. Phlebotomist, she said. 2 years. I can find a vein in a moving car. It shows. I set the box aside. My question, Angela slid a spiral-bound notary journal across the table. It was her journal, not the retired lady's. The man who stamped your amendment used to rent a desk upstairs from here co-working suite. He notarized conference room deals like he was a vending machine. The stamp number on your copy, Gregory P. Sloan. I've seen it. He notarized an annuity form for a woman who later cried in her Buick. She said he signed his name before she showed him ID. Angela pinched the bridge of her nose. I wrote him up to the state board. He got a warning letter. Sometimes paper doesn't bite hard enough. Where is he now? In a building on Dock Street, she said. Suite with frosted glass and a plant that's definitely fake. Detective Hart's got his name, I said. We'll let paper bite. Angela nodded at the box. Your favor, she asked, then shook her head. No, my favor. Take that glass to Harbor Med's independent lab. Don't go through the hospital. They re-backed up with insurance and codes and the kind of forgetfulness that policy by accident. Go to the lab behind the dentist. Ask for Ian. He owes me a casserole. Did you tell us? I asked. Or, cardiac glycosides from a plant oleander shows up if you use the right LCMS panel, she said. Say liquid chromatography tandem mass spec like you mean it. Pay cash. I smiled. You prepared these lines in your head, she shrugged. I keep a list. Things I wish my grandmother knew when men started helping too hard. Angela, I said. The scholarship is in your name because you told the truth when it was cheaper not to. She snorted. Then use my name to buy something else. Time, she said. Whatever Lydia is, she's on a clock. If she's gifted at this, she won't give you space to make choices. She crowds you with clinician appointments, paper with urgent fonts, attorneys who specialize in peace of mind. Dr. Wen, Monday, 9, I said. Angela's face went still. Don't go alone. Better, don't go at all. If you need a competency eval, it should be a neutral referral from your own GP, not one booked by a person who stands to benefit if you fail. My GP is Dr. Khanna, I said. He plays chess with the pharmacist. He knows the difference between concern and a harvest. Good, she said. Call him now. Ask him to add a note to your chart. Patient is competent. Any third-party initiated competency evals to be reviewed by GP before proceeding. It's not law. It's a speed bump. You're a teller, I said, amused. I tell inconvenient things, she said. Go, see Ian. We hugged briefly, the way women do when it's not about romance but about a battle line shifting 2 inches toward fair. Ian looked like a college kid who degrowned a lab in his parents' garage and never left. He took the box with hands that respected bubble wrap. Digitalis testing, he said. Not common unless someone's on I'm on calcium and manners, I said. Run the panel for cardiac glycoside zoleandrin, if you can. The glass has been washed. I know that's a problem. It is, he said. But LCMS can sometimes find ghosts where soap couldn't reach, and if there's anything precipitated under the base, we might get lucky. He looked up. Chain of custody started at my kitchen. I've been the sole handler, bagged and sealed. I wrote the date each time I opened the box to look at it, which was twice when I thought I was making a story in my head. He grinned. Grandmas with Chinaf custody logs. New favorite genre. When can you? I paused. The word I wanted was rush, but rushing professionals makes them sloppy. Please text me when you have anything. I'll pay the difference. He nodded. Cash receipt. No names, just the case number, he said, scribbling a label. HMLC 51287. If this is a family thing, I'm sorry. People do strange taxes with love. Love has withholdings, I said. But it doesn't audit. From the lab's parking lot, I called Rosa Patel. She answers the phone with, Patel, what did you do and when? Which tells you everything. I didn't sign a durable POA, I said. Rosa, I need to make my living trust a bunka. Short term. Bring your folder, she said. And bring the letter we joked about last year. Last year, I asked her to draft an instruction to successor trustee in case anyone ever tried to flip my competence like a switch. It wasn't enforceable as law. It was a map. If contested, trigger reversion clause to the trust's original terms, and freeze distributions pending independent medical evaluation by 2 physicians chosen by trustee's counsel. It's in the red folder, I said. Good, Rosa said. Also, bring cookies. I think, better with crumbs. Her office sits in a 2nd-story walk-up, above a French bakery that survived 3 rent hikes by selling croissants that taste like a vow. She wore a navy dress that hung like authority and handed me a mug that said, in small caps, deed before word. Okay, she said, pen waiting. Walk me through what you can prove. I gave her the bank photos, the notary journal copies, the stamp expiration, the Shell LLC page, the wire timestamp, the text scheduling Dr. Wen from Angela's phone, which she used to forward me Lydia's message when it hit the bank's switchboard by mistake. The text bubble trail looked like a fence built by a person who didn't expect anyone to measure. Rosa circled Alina Duarte Consulting. Who's Alina? A fake witness on the retired notary's journal, I said, and a recipient of the wire. The LLC doesn't exist with the state, so it's a pass-through using a DBA that never got filed, Rosa said. That's sloppy, or it's good camouflage because DBA registries are where rigor goes to nap, she underlined. Timestamp. If you have the originating account and the receiving routing number, Hart can get a subpoena to the bank, but we don't need to wait for law enforcement to make your house hurricane-proof. Hurricane Lydia, I said. Rosa's mouth twitched. Today, we file a notice of revocation and restatement, she said. We don't change beneficiaries, yet we change procedures. Any future amendments require 1. In-person notarization at a specific title company I trust. 2. 2 witnesses drawn from a rotating list of retired librarians who prey on sloppy documents. 3. You will announce today's date on video before you sign. 4 copies go to me and to a digital vault with an immutable hash, so if anyone later waives paper, we compare the hash. You're building a product, I said. I'm building a moat with alligators that speak statute, she said. Next, we record a letter of direction to your bank freeze any outgoing wires over $1,000 unless initiated by you in person. The bank will moan, but they prefer frozen accounts to headlines. I sipped coffee, and Dr. Wen, cancel, she said. Then send a certified letter to his office noting that no third party is authorized to schedule competency evaluations for you, and that any notes about you must be shared with you directly. Copy your GP, copy me, copy your fridge if it helps. It does, I said. Rosa leaned forward. Evelyn, if Lydia escalates, it won't be with paper, she said softly. It'll be with care. I'm worried about how she's coping. She forgot her stove. She called the neighbor twice about the same package. It'll be wellness checks. It'll be pills in a daily organizer labeled wrong. It'll be someone who loves you, suggesting a little help with bills so you can rest. I don't rest, I said. I reset. Good, she said, because I'm assigning you a new habit. Call me before you sign anything. Swallow anything, or let anyone in with a clipboard. Cop it, I said. Rosa typed fast, legalese unfolding on her screen like incantations that actually do something. I'll courier the bank letter today, she said. And I'll send Hart a packet she can wave at a judge. When I left, I had a folder thicker by 3, stapled protections, and thinner by some fear. The bakery sent me out with a paper bag that crinkled like confidence. At home, a white Camry idled in front of my driveway. The woman inside pretended to consult a map. I'm old enough to remember real maps. She was young enough to think her pretending worked. I parked, locked, and took 2 photos, plate and face, with my phone held at chest level, the way Miles taught me, so I wouldn't look like a tourist in a neighborhood I'd lived in since interest rates were a science fiction. Inside, the red light on my answering machine blinked like a tiny heartbeat. I keep the landline because storms. Lydia's voice filled my kitchen. Evelyn, darling, she said, informal like a stick. Just touching base about Monday. Dr. Wynne is very good. He kept my Aunt Mara from being exploited when she started misplacing her keys. Bring your med list. Also, I dropped off a vitamin pack for you, mood, energy, and a little something for your heart. You're at an age when heart health is well. Call me. The front porch creaked. I opened the door. A bright box sat beside the mat. Sunny day supplements. A cheery sun winked near the word cardio. Inside, foil packets labeled AM and PM rattled like applause. I put the box on the table and opened a packet with scissors. 2 white tablets, 1 blue, 1 capsule filled with brown grains like sand. The white tablets smelled like chalk. The blue smelled like wintergreen. The capsule smelled like nothing. Harmlessness. I took a photo. Then I called Detective Hart. Don't ingest, she said, obviously. I'll have our lab pick up a packet sealed. In the meantime, put them in a clean Ziploc with the date. Chain of custody. Don't touch your eyes. Angela thinks oleander, I said. Oleander tastes nasty, Hart said, but oleandrin capsules wrapped in a multivitamin mix. Most people taste care, not poison. We'll test. We hung up. I took the box to the second fridge, the one in the garage that holds holidays and emergencies, and set it on the door shelf beside last year's cranberry sauce. I labeled it with a Sharpie light ES vitamins. Do not eat, because a joke is how I tell fear to wait its turn. At 4, Miles knocked his 3-beat knock, the one he used when he was 5 and believed knocks should have rhythm. Nona. He stuck his head in. We're dropping Tux rentals at the mall. Mom's in the car. Can I come in for a minute? Of course. I stepped aside and saw Lydia behind the wheel, sunglasses big enough to be polishing, phone at her ear. She didn't look over. Miles bounded to the table. Miss Keene said my speech made her cry, he said, then lowered his voice. She also said your speech made 3 dads whisper fight on the bleachers. So iconic. I laughed. He saw the supplements box and frowned. Mom said vitamins were expensive. Did you buy? She bought. I'm saving. Why? Because sometimes care comes in tablets, I said, and sometimes tablets file affidavits. Miles' eyes narrowed with a tenacious kind of teenage intelligence. He picked up the box, read ingredients the way he reads comics, and pointed. Why does Botanical Blend not list the botanicals, he asked. That's like saying mystery meat and asking us to pay top dollar. Exactly. I pressed a kiss to his hair. Hey, do you know anyone named Elena Duarte from school? From anywhere? He shook his head. No, but Mom has a friend named Nell Duarte who shows up in pictures when we go to the DMV. She always signs things with Mom, like witnesses. Is that illegal? Sometimes it's friendship, I said carefully. Sometimes it's choreography. Miles exhaled. Nona, yes. He pulled a folded printout from his pocket. I looked up how K1 visas work, he said, because of debate, not because of, debate is life practice, I said. It says the has to marry within 90 days and then adjust status. Mom's timeline lines up, but the photos on Instagram from her parents look weird. The birthdays change in the captions. Same cake, 2 different birthdays. Is that a thing? Sometimes it's just cake, I said. But would you screenshot and email to me? Subject line cake. He grinned. Subject lines are everything. He moved toward the door, then turned back. Serious Nona, if this goes bad, do I have to choose? I took both his hands, warm and calloused from a summer job he hated and was proud of. You never have to choose between love and the truth, I said, but sometimes you have to choose when to say which out loud. He nodded like the man he's going to be. Then he squeezed my fingers, bolted for the car, and yelled, "Love you," in a way that forced Lydia to look. She smiled a hostage smile and drove away. That night, my front door got a knock that said, "Official." 2 beats, pause, 1 beat. I opened to a woman in a tidy polo with County Adult Protective Services embroidered above her heart. "Mrs. Hale, I'm caseworker Denby. We received an anonymous call expressing concern about your decision-making and home safety. May I come in?" "Anonymous," I said. "That must be thrilling." "It can be," she said. "Professional, but kind." "May I?" "Yes," I said. "But we'll do it like this. I'm going to record on my phone. You can record on yours. We'll take a photo of your ID. And before we begin, I'll call my attorney and put her on speaker." Denby smiled. "That's excellent practice." Rosa answered on the first ring. "Patel, App's wellness check," I said. "Put me on speaker," she said. "Hello, Miss Denby. I'll listen quietly. Mrs. Hale, you know the drill." The drill. We walked through the kitchen. I pointed to the stove knob's childproof covers installed after my husband learned the hard way that grief burns toast. We walked to the medicine cabinet where I kept my few prescribed pills in original bottles with dates, and the vitamin box in the garage with the "Do Not Eat" label. Denby raised her eyebrows at that. I watched her take a photo. We tested the smoke detectors. We checked that my front steps were salted with grip tape. We reviewed my financial safeguards. I showed her the bank letter. Rosa filed that afternoon. She admired the wet ink stamp, and my bill calendar, a paper schedule ID, used for 30 years because apps die and paper goes in tea. Denby checked boxes on a tablet. "If all my wellness checks were like this, I'd be out of a job," she said lightly. "One more question. Do you have any upcoming appointments with new physicians?" "I had one scheduled by a third party," I said. "I canceled and routed any concerns through my GP." "Perfect," she said. "I'll close this as unsubstantiated. For what it's worth, I know what it looks like when someone tries to manufacture incompetence. You're not it." When she left, the sun had tilted enough to throw long stripes across my living room rug. I sat on the step and listened to time. It clicked in my husband's pocket watch, and in the little ticks a house makes when it decides to keep standing, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Dock Street, frosted glass, 6 p.m. He meets Alina on Fridays." A Gregory P. Sloan, notary with a stamp that should have retired before it started impersonating me. I forwarded the text to Hart, then to Rosa, then printed it for my paper trail because printers are the only machines that fear honesty. Hart responded in 5 minutes. Greater than on it. "Don't approach if they meet. I want photos and a time stump. Stay 2 storefronts back." I wrote the plan on a sticky note. Because writing plans is how I ensure I improvise where improvising makes things worse. At 5:40, I parked on Dock Street. 2 storefronts from a glass door, with frosted panes and a fake plant angled, just so, to look real to people who love low-light offices. I wore my navy cardigan and shoes that look like submission but can run. The evening smelled like salt and old varnish. At 6:03, Sloan appeared, navy suit, tied to shiny, a briefcase that wanted to be expensive. At 6:06, Alina arrived, a woman with good hair and the dead eyes of someone who has turned off the part of herself that tells the truth to her own reflection. They went inside. Hart texted, "We're moving. Stay put." I stayed put. I counted the windows on the street. I read and reread the sign in the adjacent gallery, "Modern Impressionists," which is like calling a fax machine a retro text device. At 6:21, the door opened and Sloan ushered out a third person. He handed a folder to Alina, who slipped it into a tote, and then they went 3 ways like a dandelion in a petty breeze. Photos, timestamps, I sent them to Hart. She responded with a thumbs up and a phrase. I want it on a mug. Paper meets people. On the drive home, Ian from the lab called. "We found trace oleandrin," he said. "Too degraded for a courtroom, on its own, washed and months old but present. More importantly, Your vitamin capsules. We tested the brown grains in 1 p.m. pack. Oleandrin, positive, the concentration is low, but cumulative dosing would do a number on a person your age, especially if you have any heart electrical issues, which I do not, I said, other than my heart refusing to like certain people. I'll email the lab report with the method and chain of custody listed, he said. If you need me to testify, I can, but I'm a lab tech who says like too often in court. You say it just enough, I said. Thank you. When I hung up, I pulled into a parking lot and breathed until breathing stopped being a trick. Then I called Hart. We have lab confirmation on the vitamin packs, I said. Oleandrin, low dose, cumulative, good, she said, voice turning to a line. I'll coordinate with the DA's office. We'll need to show intent and delivery. Keep the unopened packs sealed. Don't confront. I won't, I said. I'm a purse with hands. I carry. Hart almost laughed. Tomorrow, she said, we'll flip the board. I looked at the dark glass of my own reflection in the car window. I thought of Miles' chest tap, of Angela's sensible shoes, of Rosa's alligator moat. I thought of Lydia's long, slow blink and the way she said reset like it meant erase. Tomorrow, I said, we begin. By morning, our triangle Rosa Hart and me worked like an old clock whose gears were newly oiled and slightly vindictive. Hart called at 8:07. Meet me at Records, she said. Bring your coffee and your patience. County Records lives in a building that used to sell furniture that remembered the Great Depression. We signed in, took plastic badges that made us look important enough to blame, and followed Hart to a table by a humming microfiche machine. Okay, she said, sliding a folder across. Here's what Doc Street bought us. On top 3 stills from last night's Lona Lena Antonio. Hart had annotated them with tidy block letters. Under that, a visitor log for the Doc Street suite. 2 columns mattered, name and purpose. Elena Duarte, I read. Purpose, witness, sign. Except, Hart said, tapping the page, when you pull the building's key fob records, Elena doesn't exist. The fob used at 6:06 p.m. belongs to Nell Duarte, same last name, different first name, and when I ran Nell, she resolves to a different identity entirely. Noelia D. Hart checked herself. I won't say the last name on a public table, the short version. Nell and Elena are the same person. Rosa leaned in. Alias, rotation, Hart said. People in this business swap consonants like hats. Now, here's your flip. She pulled a stapled set. Marriage records, Lydia's file. My stomach tightened the way an old house tightens when a temperature drops. We know Lydia came in on a K1 and adjusted status after marrying your son, Hart said. That's clean on paper. But 2 months before her AOS interview, their SA civil record in another county, a marriage license for a Lydia D. to Alan Ruiz. I blinked. Ruiz Hart's mouth curved. Angela has a brother, she said. He died 5 years ago. The marriage license is a fraud seed never completed, probably used for a driver S license in a strict state or as a practice file to test which clerk asks which questions, but the important thing is the notary. Guess who stamped the affidavit attached to that license? I didn't bother guessing. Sloan, Hart confirmed. Stamp number matches your trust amendment. Now look at the witness on that affidavit. Rosa's nail tapped the page. Nell Duarte. Hart nodded. Angela's brother wasn't involved. A notary mill and a professional witness were. The Ruiz, in that file, isn't Angela's family. It's a name borrowed off a local obituary. Identity laundering. They borrowed a dead man's surname to shore up a bridal story. I exhaled. Parachuted parents, I murmured. Parents show up next, Hart said. She slid another packet. Affidavits of family support for Lydia's AOS. Both parents list the same arrival, address an apartment over a pawn shop that later hosted 2 other parents for 2 other files. When we compare their birthday memories, in a week we stand at a small ceremony in a cafeteria that smells like floor wax and cinnamon rolls, and we hand out a certificate with Angela S. name at the top and Miles' smile somewhere near the bottom of the frame. I will clap too loudly, then quietly. I will bring extra pens that squeak when you press too hard. This is my new normal. A house where the deadbolt clicks with purpose, a bank that knows my challenge phrase, a school that funds kids who keep receipts, and a grandson who understands that boundaries are just love with a ruler. Thanks for listening. I'll meet you in the comments.